There was tremendous pressure from the United States. George Bush had made this big speech, you're either with us or against us. And despite that pressure, Atal Bihari Vajpayee took the command decision of not sending troops to Iraq.
Yes, absolutely. I think that there he was very firm. The point remains is it's no matter, first of all, our foreign policies, our compulsions for our foreign policy cannot be driven by the needs of another country such as the US. We follow a foreign policy which is suited to our country and our interests. And I think clearly Atal Bihari Vajpayee at that point of time also realized that there are others in this region who are allies of ours in a sense, or who are with us. For instance, Iran, even now we are under pressure.
Yes.
But we are not, we are resisting. Prime Minister Modi is resisting that pressure. That we must continue to, we must
Jen
follow.
Hasnain, your appreciation of the situation. There was tremendous pressure on Atal Bihari Vajpayee to send a division plus to Iraq. The opposition was up in arms. CPI leaders, left leaders from A.B. Bardhan to Harkishan Singh Surjeet, they went and met him. But I'll tell you the inside story in just a moment. But Jen Hasnain, your appreciation that troops were not sent to Iraq.
Gaurav, I can share with you something. I was then at the military secretary's branch, and I was about to pick up my own rank as a brigadier. And I was warned at that particular time that I could possibly be leading the 1st Brigade to Iraq. So I do have a personal involvement with this. I can tell you this was probably one of the finest decisions, strategic decisions, which Atal Bihari Vajpayee took during his entire tenure. Because there was tremendous pressure and there was a degree of temptation that India was being led into. The Indian armed forces were being led into. The possibility of transfer of technology, entering into the higher table in decision-making in the international community, all this was coming our way. But it was Atal Bihari Vajpayee who stood his ground and felt that we had no business to be going into a expeditionary kind of a mode in a different country where our interests would not be completely with us. We would be pandering to a superpower and their interests, and at the end of the day, it is only the strategic independence which was most important for India's national interest. And that is the decision that he took.
Now, for a moment, as we watch leaders pay tribute to Atal Bihari Vajpayee, let's delve into the backstory of how Atal Bihari Vajpayee ensured that we would not send troops to Iraq. And Ajit, that was a very, very interesting story because we were all defense correspondents. We were told, as General Atta Hasnain is just mentioning, that the army was being primed to send a division, into Iraq. But Atal Bihari Vajpayee ensured it didn't by saying we're such a great democracy. When A.B. Bardhan and Harkishan Singh Surjeet went and met him, and they were so angry, Atal Bihari Vajpayee said, "Comrade, sara gussa yahan dikhaoge ya sadkon par?" That is an amazing story.
Yes, absolutely.
And it was a democracy that prevailed. People pressure, parliament couldn't function, and we didn't send troops.
You know, everyone talks about Vajpayee's extraordinary accommodation, the great liberal that he was. People forget that he could be, he could have his own way many a time, even during several sort of coalition meetings. I mean, of course, I'm so glad he never sent the troops to Iraq. Otherwise, we would have lost enormous amount of, young sort of youngsters.
But love and respect of the Arab world.
Absolutely,
that's what I was trying to say.
I mean, in fact, that's why he was a realist, not only a romantic. But what I'm talking about also in sort of, day-to-day politics. For example, at a time when the CPM and the BJP was talking together during the VP Singh administration, someone like Jyoti Basu, someone as sagacious as Jyoti Basu, would come to meet Vajpayee ji, but never go into Vajpayee ji's house or never let Vajpayee ji come to his own house. They would actually meet in industrialist Viren Shah's house in Vasant Vihar.
Okay.
And Vajpayee ji publicly always talked about this front because they had to fight the Congress.
Yes.
But privately, Vajpayee ji used to be, quite critical of this duplicity of the left, whether it was internationally or whether it was in domestic relations. So he maintained that, but publicly he held them in very high respect. That was the greatness of Vajpayee ji.
Oh, absolutely. So, General Hasnain, you agree that it was a very good decision. Troops were not sent to Iraq, and the way he orchestrated, or at least that is what we were told, that he encouraged the left leaders to protest in Parliament, outside Parliament, on the streets, and then turned around and told the Americans that there is so much pressure, we are a democracy and I have to respect the people, my Parliament is not functioning, there are protests that are happening on the streets, I can't send troops to Iraq? General Hasnain?
Absolutely. I think that orchestration was absolutely outstanding, as already been brought out. An upfront kind of a decision on the face with the Americans would not have perhaps got much of a favor from them, and perhaps in the future the aspects of the Indo-US nuclear deal, etc., which were about to come about in the next 1 or 2 years, would have been looked upon very negatively. But this decision was orchestrated very correctly with the assistance of what was told to be public opinion, the opinion of parliamentarians of different opposition parties, etc. This was the adroit way of doing it. But Gaurav, I may like to remind you of one more thing. That you have played out the whole story of the commitment towards Iraq. But yes, I think Atal Bihari Vajpayee's decision-making and cooperation during the period when he was out of power was even more iconic. I recall the period from 1991 to 1996 when Kashmir was burning.
Yes.
And the manner in which India was under tremendous international pressure from Robin Raphael, the Assistant Secretary of State of the United States, who was imposing a tremendous amount of negative pressure on India on the human rights issue.
Yes.
You may like to recall for our listeners and for our viewers that it was the cooperation of Atal Bihari Vajpayee with Narasimha Rao, the then Prime Minister, which ensured that the parliamentary resolution was passed on 22nd of February 1994, projecting to the world that the entire territory of Jammu and Kashmir belonged to India. That is the joint parliamentary resolution by which we still abide. And then 6 months later, leading the Indian delegation to the United Nations Human Rights Convention in Geneva, where as being a part of the opposition, he was given the responsibility of leading the delegation, which consisted of Salman Khurshid and Farooq Abdullah, and how this delegation took the winds out of the sails of the Pakistani diplomatic offensive against India on the human rights front.